judge can't. A judge rules on each one separately.
Right.
Okay, and usually people are unhappy with what the judges come out with. And by the way, mediation is wonderful because the studies have proven that people who make their own agreements, okay, as opposed to going to court and having a judge tell them what to do, when they make their own agreements, they're most likely to obey them, honor them, and not breach them, because they're part of the process.
Is there any information on their satisfaction level with it?
Oh yeah, the satisfaction level is off the charts.
Right. Whereas if you go to
compared
court,
to some judge saying this is what you can do, and one person's crying, and the other one's happy, or more than likely they're both unhappy.
Sure.
In mediation, same thing with negotiation. You know what you're getting, all right? You know what the give and take.
So you've given us a list of some things, but I'd like to go outside that for a minute and talk about some issues that are relevant to this, like the retainer. How much? Talk about the scope.
Sure. Well, the way you go about retaining a mediator is you have to select one first. All right? And there are a number of ways to do that. You can go to the yellow pages. You can go to the bar associations. You can go to the internet. The American Academy of Matrimonial Lawyers has a website that has a list of mediators. And you should interview at least two, right? Because mediators have totally different styles and approaches. So you have one, and when you interview, both parties should go to the initial interview. Because if one goes, in fact, I won't even talk to one person first, because then I've lost my neutrality. If I'm alone with one person initially, I might say or do something, and the other person's going to get suspicious. Right? So you interview people, select one. Then together, both parties go, and you need to enter into a retainer agreement. It's a written agreement which says you're going to pay so much an hour. You're going to give me a retainer of X amount of dollars. Usually, a provision that that all the mediation is confidential, and the mediator can't be subpoenaed to court to tell a judge at some point or another what their position was. And this is across the board. And most importantly, the scope, as you mentioned. What issues are going to be mediated? You need to put them down in writing, because the mediator's job really should not go beyond that.
Can you mix and match? Is it possible to have a client say, I'd like to mediate the following 5 issues and go to court and trial on this 6th issue?
Sure you can. But you got to remember also, mediation is voluntary. At any point, a party to mediation can bail out. Say, I don't like the way this is going. I think you're favoring the other side, or I just don't like this whole idea. And that happens once in a while, and they go out. But more often than not, what draws people into mediation usually keeps them there. They want to mediate because they don't want to litigate. They don't want to go out and get the bulldog lawyer and end up in court.
But you said that it's voluntary, and I'm thinking maybe some audience members are saying, the court ordered me to go to mediation. Is there such thing as a court-ordered mediation?
Yes, there is, and that's if you're already in litigation, you've filed for divorce. Initially, if you don't solve the issue of custody, you go to a custody mediator within the court system. All right, and then later on, if you don't reach an agreement on some of the economic issues, the court will first send you to what's called an early settlement panel. Those are 2 volunteer lawyers who will listen to both sides for settlement and make a non-binding recommendation. That's not mediation. Right? But if that's unsuccessful, the next step is economic mediation. And there are lists of attorneys and mediators that offer their services. The first 2 hours are free. The court can order them there. They have to go for 2 hours. And if they want to go longer, they can stay with that mediator and pay the mediator's hourly rate.
The mediation that is court-ordered is still non-binding, right? You
Correct.
Can still go to...
By definition. And confidential. The judge never hears what goes on in mediation.
So what about this then? What if someone comes to... Well, we'll use you as an example, and you're serving as a mediator, and they can't come to resolution, but one side said, I really like your fairness. I like that you had a non-aggressive approach and you were respectful to everyone. Can you be my divorce attorney? Can you have served as a mediator? It proved unsuccessful because of the party's wishes, and now someone would like to hire you.
There are some mediators out there that do. I think that's not the right approach. The mediator should never, ever represent one side, because by definition and function, the mediator is a neutral. A mediator always has to be neutral. And in most of the mediated agreements that I put together, there's a provision that says if there's a dispute on this agreement later on, you agree to re-access mediation and to work it out. And if you can't work it out there, then you go to court.
Okay. You've told us in our conversation, which is quickly coming to a close, that there's an early settlement panel,
Right.
which some people may confuse for mediation. You used the word arbitration.
Right.
We've talked about mediation. We've talked about non-binding mediation. There's a such thing as a binding arbitration.
Correct.
So can you just, in our closing moments, help differentiate that for those who are confused?
Okay. I'll go through the hierarchy of a dispute resolution.
Okay.
First level is direct negotiation. All right. Some people forget to do that. Talk to your spouse. All right. Try to work it out. If you can't, the next level is mediation. Mediation is where you have a neutral person to help you make your own agreement.
Okay.
Okay. If that doesn't work, you can go to arbitration. Arbitration is where you hire a neutral person to actually make the decision for you. It's like a private judge. Okay? And so it's private hearings, you set your own time schedule, it's confidential, and the arbitrator's award can then be made into a judgment for divorce. If that doesn't work, last step, litigation. And I'm a litigator, I like litigating, but I tell clients all the time, don't litigate. That's the last thing, the last rung on the hierarchy of dispute resolutions, because you're asking a judge who you don't know, who will only know your case for a few days to make a decision that's binding. And the judge can't do all the things that you can do by yourselves. The judge will never know your case like you will.
So in our closing moments, I just want to ask, I've done mediation several times, and I want to let the audience in on what it's like sitting on that side as the mediator. When you hear the party speak, and then you hear the other side, you know, the first time you hear somebody, you're like, wow, you got a good case. At least that's my experience. I hear the story, and I'm like, that's very interesting. And then you hear the other side, like, oh, you didn't share that detail with me. Is it the same for you, that you hear with an open mind, and you start to get some sympathy of where the case is at, and then you hear the other side and say, well, now it's enriched the picture, and I'm not changing my mind, but I'm getting a clear idea.
Well, you see, it's not what's in the mediator's mind. The mediator's job is to get both of the clients to understand each other's mind and to find the common ground to make an agreement. Okay, the mediator should not be judgmental, right? But in the end result is the mediated agreement should be fair and reasonable to both. Nobody should really have a win or a major win or a major loss. There's a range of settlements that one would consider fair, and the mediator's job, I think, is to steer it in that direction.
You've done a great job of steering us in the right direction tonight, and I thank you so much.
You mean the show's over?
Yes, the show is
darn.
over. And thank you for tuning in to LawTalkToday.tv. I'm Dan Agatino, your host.